This is Amud Yomi Gemara and Berachos Daf Nun Amud Beis. We're holding at the bottom of Nun Amud Aleph, right after the Mishnah, 6 lines from the bottom. The Mishnah just taught us many dinim of Zimun, and therefore the Gemara is bothered and begins by asking, "My kamash malon, what is the chiddush of our Mishnah? Tanina chada zimna." We've already learned this halacha that taught us. Three people have to make a zimun. So what exactly is the Mishnah coming to teach us? Explains the Gemara, Kamash Malan, you know what it's coming to teach us? Three people sat down to eat together, but they did not yet eat. Einon Rishayin Lachalik. The mere Kiviyas Yeshiva, the mere fact that they came to sit together dictates that they have to indeed sit together, and therefore they're not able to split up. Lishnachrina, says the Gemara, Amar Rav Abba, Amar Shmuel. Hachikatani. This is what the Mishnah is teaching us. Three people who sit to eat together. Even though each one eats from his own loaf of bread, still the fact again, the kaviyas that they're eating together. Inami, another pshat. Three people who come from three different groups are not able to separate. And now here, Rashi, 2 lines to the bottom, keys us in that if you have 3 groups of 3 people each, and one leaves from each group and they form a new group, that new group has a zimon based on the original groups that were. Amar Rav Chisda, Rav Chisda explains that this is only that originally it came from 3 groups of 3 people. And Amar Rava qualifies even further as we turn over to Nun Amud Beis. That the original people didn't make a zimun, which now Rashi points out that we have to be talking about that there were 4 people in the original groups. 1 person left from each group. Now there's 3 people left in the original group. And now those 3 people that left form their own group. Now what's the story of those? In such a scenario, if the original group did not do a zimun, then they could do a new zimun. But if they already made a zimun in the original place, parach a zimun meinayu, they have lost the zimun. Amar Rav Amnam, where do I know this? It's an learned in a Mishnah. Mita, very interesting. Mekar mita shenignu chatzya, a bed that was tamei, that was stolen, half of it. Or you lost half of it. Or brothers or partners divided amongst the bed amongst themselves. Nachamo, and therefore the bed is owned by 2 halves of people. Tiara, it's tar. We know any utensil that becomes unusable is now no longer tamei. It's considered a broken keli. Hechziru, if they put it back together, then of course, mekabel is tumah lekan v'alba. It's mekabel tumah from that moment and onwards. From here, the Gemara deduces that only mikan labayin limafreya loy, but it's not limafreya tamei. It only is now mikabel tumah that it could become tamei. Alma, what do we see? Kivan de palgua. Once you split the bed up, parchala tuma minei, tuma leaves it and does not come back again until it actually becomes tamei. Achanami kivin dizman alayu, parach ziman minayu. Continues the Gemara, the 2 dots, 10 lines down. Give them a beish chaburos, 2 groups eating together. Said the Mishnah of mixas, if part of them could see each other, then they could combine for a ziman tana. We learned in a brayso. Even if they cannot see each other, but there's a waiter serving the 2 groups, shamish mitztar, for the shamish combines them into being 1 group. Says the Gemara, in Mavarchan al Yayin, the Mishnah taught us that you cannot make a bracha on wine until you pour water in to dilute it. But the Chachamim said no, there's always a bari priyagafen on the wine. So says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, again 12 lines down, the 2 dots. Yayin, when it comes to wine, before water is put into it. Ein mevarchen la bayir pri agafen, does not get the agafen, says the Tanakama. Ella bayir pri eitz. Why? Because it's just grapes. And not only does the bracha change, but now you can even use it for the tilas yadayim. It doesn't have the chashivos of a hagafen. Once water is placed into it, says the Tanakama, now mevarchen alav bari pri hagafen. Now we make a bari pri hagafen over it. And we cannot wash our hands with it. Divrei Rav Eliezer. Once the water is poured in, it gets the of a geffen, and then number one, the bracha. Number two is you cannot wash your hands anymore with it. It's always a geffen, and we cannot wash our hands with it. Based on this, says the Gemara, where does Shmuel go on? That says I used to called Saracha Vipas. Shmuel says you're allowed to do whatever you want with pas, with bread, meaning you're allowed to use bread even for your own purposes, as we'll see further in the Gemara in a moment. Kiman Rav Eliezer, Rashi explains, because Rav Eliezer seemingly is the opinion that we're not worried about the bizayon that's going to be happening to the bread. So too will he allow, you're not worried about the hefsid, the loss of food by utilizing the wine before you pour water in it for tilas yadayim. So too you'll be allowed to use the bread for your own purposes. Amar Rav Yesi Rav Chanina, Moedim Chacham Rav Eliezer Chamer Moedim B'Kay Shal Bracha. That watch ein mevarchen lav achid l'teichai mayim. My time on Rav Yishe bin a mitzvah min hamavchar, and for a mitzvah min hamavchar, you need to have water added into your wine. V'Rabbanan, the Rabbanan that say you make a bar pri agafen always, even if it's undiluted lamai chazi. Says the Gemara, undiluted wine, what could be used for? Again, we have to orient ourselves. This isn't simply wine that you need to put a little water in it like our bottle of wine. It's undiluted strong wine, which isn't really consumed as wine. So says the Gemara, what's really its usage? Explains the Gemara, Amar Rav Zera, chazi l'kuraiti, it's a certain type of medicinal drink, etc. Says the Gemara, Tanarabba, on smack in the middle of the Amud of Nunam Beis. The first word on the line is Likuraiti. Explains the Gemara, Bar Dvarim, Namru Be'pas. Four things are said about bread. Number one, Ein Menichem Basar Chayal Lapas. You're not allowed to place raw meat on bread. Why? Because it makes the bread disgusting. You're not allowed to pass over a full cup over bread. Why? Again, because it might spill and ruin the bread. Vein zarkinis apas. You're not allowed to throw bread. Vein semchlis akayir bepas. You're not allowed to place, support a plate with a piece of bread underneath it to stabilize the plate. Says the Gemara, a story I made from Rav Ashi Karchurivt about the Adadi. They're all having bread together. I was like, they brought pomegranates and dates. He took some cooked meat and he threw it to Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi said to him, you're not allowed to throw food. Says the Gemara, that's not a problem. Says Marzuch, you know why? He bepastan, that's why bread you cannot throw, but other foods you are allowed to. Says the Bryce you can't throw any food. Amrle Marzuch said, but it's a different Bryce that says you could, yes. So how do we differentiate between these tiers and Bryces? Or says the Gemara, something that's going to become disgusting if you throw it, then you're not allowed to throw. Something that will not become disgusting, like a piece of cooked meat, then yes, you'd be allowed to throw that to another, and similar to throw fruits and veggies, etc., as we just saw. Tanur Rabbanan tells the Gemara more about hefsid oichlin, that you're not allowed to cause a food to be lost. They let wine flow through pipes in front of the chassan and kala. This was a siman taiv that the bracha and the shefa should flow for this new couple. But Rashi explains they would put a cup or a bowl at the end to catch the wine so it doesn't get lost. Let to throw toasted grain and walnuts in the summer when the ground is not wet. so it's not going to ruin these nuts. But bread rolls you can't throw neither in the summer or in the winter. Why? Because they get ruined. And 2 dots, 6 lines from the bottom, we have one last small sugya for the day, a very important sugya. Amar Rav Yehuda, you forgot, and you put food in your mouth without a bracha. What do? Says Rav Yehuda, mitzalkin l'tzad echad, you put it to one side of your mouth, umavarech, and you make a bracha. Says the Gemara, we have 3 braysos. Tani Chadi, one brayso says, boil and you spit out the food if you forget to make the bracha. Tani Idach, another brayso, you swallow the food. Tani Idach, palt, and you spit out the food. Tani Idach, and the third brayso says, mitzalkin, you move it to the side of your mouth. Spit out, swallow, move to your side of your mouth. How do we reconcile the 3 braysos? Explains the Gemara. Loya kash. Oh, Titania Bolin, that's what she said. You swallow it as b'mashkin is liquids. Liquids, there's nothing you can do, so you swallow it. Oh, the tiny polton you spit out means lamamis, something that's not going to become disgusting. A hard candy, you take it out, you make the bracha, you put it back in. Oh, the tiny misalkin, that which we said, you move to the side of your mouth, is v'midi demamis, something which is repulsive, so you can't take it out, so you just move it to your side. Says the Gemara in the top of the alpha, midi lamamis nami, even if it's not going to be disgusting. Why don't you just put it to one side of your mouth and make the bracha? Why do you have to spit it out? Who cares that it won't become disgusting? If you're allowed to make a bracha with it on the side of your mouth, you should do that. Says the Gemara, you might be allowed to make the bracha. But it's not lechatchila. Tirgmar Rav Yitzchak Kaskaso Kamid Rav Yosi Baravim Mishrid Rav Yechon Misham Shenamar Yemale Piti Lasecha. Your mouth should be yemale, filled with Hashem's brachos. Lechatchila, our mouth is empty when we make a bracha.